You know, when we first started Manzanar Pilgrimage and we came up here, inadvertently you started to learn about the issues of the valley. One of them that I'm sure everybody knows is water. So when we started our first pilgrimages, we wanted to be able to use this land without getting any trouble. And we looked through the government processes, who's what and where. And we found out that who controlled this land at the time was the Department of Water and Power of Los Angeles. So those of us in Los Angeles, some of our water comes from this valley. And just driving up with my son and my granddaughter and my wife, we were thinking, what would this valley look like if there wasn't the aqueduct taking the water out? But that's a whole nother story. Through that, we were able to make some really good friends at the California state level and now at the national level. I'd like to introduce someone that we've been working with, Bernadette Johnson. She's the superintendent of the Manzanar National Historic Site. They're the ones that have been helping out with all of this development. Really appreciate their help and their work and their leadership. Bernadette.
It is so amazing to see all of your faces here. So imagine this landscape with 10,000 people. Next year we should make 10,000 people come, so it feels like 1942. But on behalf of the National Park Service, I just want to welcome you. Thank you for always sharing your stories with us. Thank you for being here for us, because without you and your stories, the 104,000 people that visited Manzanar last year would have a different experience when they come to Manzanar. So know that for those of you who were incarcerated, even if it wasn't Manzanar, your experience and your stories are still being preserved here, and people of all colors from all across the world are learning about the injustice that you and your families endured during incarceration. Kathy talked about the Paiute use of our valley, and earlier I think Warren talked about the Sierra Nevada. And here's one thing I think about how visitors experience this site. A year and a half ago in our new classroom exhibit, a visitor left a line drawing of the Sierra, and it simply said this: "The Sierra stands as a silent witness." So today, the Sierra is witnessing all of you coming together on this hallowed ground, this very special place where we can all remember what happened and make sure that we influence other people to make sure it doesn't happen again. So thank you and have a very safe day. I almost didn't do my job, so let me come back. So on behalf of the National Park Service, we have our Acting Deputy Regional Director for the Pacific West Region, or Region 10, and she'll be giving you a few brief remarks, but please welcome Cindy Orlando.
Hello, Bernadette. Let me just ditto Bernadette. On behalf of the National Park Service, I want to welcome you as we mark the 50th anniversary of the pilgrimage. It is truly amazing to see all of these faces here with us. Thank you very much for being with us today. And thank you especially to the Manzanar Committee. Amazing work that you do, all the volunteers that make this possible, and to Bernadette and her staff, the incredible hospitality and keeping us all safe today. When Congress created Manzanar National Historic Site almost 30 years ago, it was the culmination of more than 2 decades of very passionate work by very dedicated people. And now we have this place and others across the country that will forever stand as reminders of the injustices suffered by so many people. The stories of Japanese Americans and immigrants of Japanese ancestry are featured at Manzanar, Minidoka, and Honouliuli National Historic Sites, the newly created Tule Lake National Monument, and the Bainbridge Island Japanese American Exclusion Memorial, among others. At many sites, preservation began with grassroots effort to bring recognition to these stories. What begins with the efforts of a few becomes a legacy for all of us. Before taking my current position, I was the superintendent of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. The lei that I am wearing today is a kumihimo lei and reflects the traditional art of Japanese braiding. I was gifted this lei by Betsy Young of the Japanese Cultural Center in Honolulu, who all send their aloha to you. One of my responsibilities at the park was to preserve the buildings used as a detainment center within Kilauea Military Camp within the park boundary. In less than 4 hours after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Territorial Governor Joseph Poindexter invoked the Hawaii Defense Act, giving him absolute wartime power in Hawaii. By mid-afternoon, the decision to place the territory under martial law was made, placing control of Hawaii under a military governor. On the evening of December 7th, 1941, the usually sleepy military facility became a detainment camp, eventually holding more than 100 resident Japanese. Later, it also held Koreans and Italians. Those who had been arrested by nightfall had previously been identified and named on the FBI's custodial detention list. These detainees were just a few of what amounted to 2,000 people from Hawaii, a third of whom were American citizens at the time, who were incarcerated. Mr. Yoshio Hoshida, otherwise known to us as George, a detainee at KMC, preserved the experiences with letters and incredible artwork. Like so many others at the sites listed above, his depictions tell the stories of the forced relocation and incarceration of up to 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry, one of the most atrocious civil rights abuses in the 20th century. Those depictions are our stories. Here at Manzanar, Sansei Warren Furutani and Victor Shibata organized the first public pilgrimage, as we heard about, in 1969. Nisei led the fight to recognize and preserve the site. Under the determined leadership of Sue Kunitomi Embry, the Manzanar Committee overcame challenges to obtain the state landmark designation in 1972, which led to the historic landmark designation in 1985. You know the rest of the story. Last year, as Bernadette said, over 104,000 people visited the site. The power of the place is helping to change hearts and minds. We in the National Park Service are humbled by the responsibility to steward and preserve these very important experiences and stories for all of you, and so that visitors from around the world can learn about the Japanese incarceration and to remind each of us to work together to make sure this never happens again. Have a wonderful day and stay safe. Thank you.